Hello everyone, my name is Hemant and I work as a project manager at Eurofins. Today I'm going to be talking about EzRF, which is Eurofins online requisition form tool. As you already know, requisition forms and shipment lists need to be sent to Eurofins with samples. Any sample that is accompanied with incorrectly filled out requisition form or shipment list is not able to be processed or reported unless the discrepancy is resolved. The EzRF portal was developed to simplify the completion of these forms and thereby reducing the number of discrepancies in filling out the requisition forms and shipment lists. Using this tool, users can complete the requisition forms and shipment lists online and send them out locally. Afterwards, these forms can be sent to Eurofins with the corresponding samples. All right, let's move on to slide number 2. And again, just what I just said, it's a very user-friendly online requisition form tool using which the users can complete the requisition forms and shipment lists online. They don't have to complete the paper-based requisition form. They don't have to use, the pen and complete the paper-based requisition forms manually. They can just go online, complete the requisition form online, send the online requisition form, and use the copy of the EzRF form to send along with their samples. This slide also has a link to EzRF. This link will take you to our main page. All right, I'm on slide number 3 now. So, as you understand, earlier you were receiving paper-based requisition forms, right? And these requisition forms had tube labels at the bottom. And what you would do is you would take these tube labels and put them onto the samples. And you would send these label samples along with completed copies of the requisition forms to Eurofins. Now, when you use the online requisition form, what you would do is that, like for example, if you're trying to complete the requisition form for visit 1 safety samples, ambient samples, you would take the paper-based requisition form for that particular sample. So you would take the paper form for visit 1 safety ambient samples. In the online system, the system would ask you to enter in the requisition form number. And that requisition form number will come from the paper requisition form you received in the mail. So what you would do is, on the upper right-hand side, you will see a barcode. Just below the barcode, you will see there will be a number typed. You will just take that number and type that number into the online requisition form tool where it asks for the requisition form number, right? And when you're labeling your tubes, you take the labels from the same requisition form and you label your tubes using those labels. You have to make sure that the number on the requisition form that you complete and the labels are the requisition form number on the labels actually match. If there is an identification issue, it might lead to errors down the line. Let's talk about system overview. I'm on slide number 7. When the study team asks us to provide access to any of the sites, you would go ahead and give access internally and send an email to the user. The email would contain a link to EzRF and also the username and password information. The first time you log into the system would actually prompt you to change your password. So the password we send is a temporary password. You need to then change the password to a permanent one. Once you confirm the new password, the system will take you to user agreement page. You're going to have to go through this user agreement and click on agree to move further. Also, the system would prompt you to change your password every 90 days just as a security measure. All right, so we are on slide number 8. This gives you the home page. Once you log into the system, this is how it's going to look like. The upper right-hand side has the name of the user. Just below that, you have a button to log out of the system. The upper left-hand corner has a logo, and just below the logo, you have 3 different buttons. First, the home button. Now, of course, if you were on some other page in the EzRF system and you click on home page, it will bring you back to this page. This is the home page. The accession button has 3 different options. When you click on accession, it will give you 3 options. First option is called submit option, which allows you to submit the requisition form. Second option is the ship option, and third option is called the search option. We'll be talking about these three different options in this presentation in great detail. It is the accession button that you'll be using the most. Then you have the contact list button, and it has contact information of all the different sites, the reference locations, and also it has a link to the EzRF user manual. And the user manual is very user-friendly manual. The language is very easy to understand, so once you go with the user manual, you won't find it difficult to use EzRF system at all. If you have any questions regarding EzRF, you can go with the manual, and I'm sure the manual will answer your questions. Of course, if you have any further questions, you're always welcome to contact us. So just to reiterate, Contact Us tab has the contact information of all the Eurofins sites, all the by site I mean Eurofins lab locations, and then you have the link to the EzRF manual, and you also have a link to the EzRF frequently asked questions. Now, these links would take you to the PDF versions of the document. So if you click on the link for EzRF manual, it will take you to the PDF version of the manual. If you click on the link for frequently asked questions, it will take you to the PDF for frequently asked questions. Moving on to the next slide, which is slide number 9. It just, again, reiterates what I just said. Homepage. The screenshot you saw on the previous slide was the home page. If you were on any other page in the EzRF website, and if you click on the home page, it will bring you back to that page. Accession tab is the tab you would use the most for completing online acquisition forms. Search for previously completed acquisition forms and ship storage samples. Contact Us tab has contact information of the Eurofins locations, EzRF user guide, and EzRF frequently asked questions document. Slide number 10. It tells you that accession has 3 different options: submit, search, and ship. And we'll be talking about these options in the next few slides. First option is the submit option. I'm on slide number 12. Now, this is the option you will use to complete the acquisition forms. You will see that when you click on accession and click on submit, this is the kind of screen you would get on your computer. On the upper left-hand side, there's a drop-down menu for the study. So you would select the study using this drop-down menu. If you have access to more than one study, of course, you would use this drop-down menu to select the study you're trying to complete the acquisition form for. Also, on the right-hand side, you will see a drop-down for sites. So you would select the sites. If you have access to more than one site, this is where you would go and select the site you're trying to complete the acquisition form for. If you have access to only one site and one study, the study and the site would then appear in these windows by default. Also, if you see under Create New Accession, there are several different fields that you would need to complete. This is the demographic information you will need to complete for your acquisition form. Once you select the study, this is the Create New Accession area would appear on the screen. You will need to complete this area to start completing the acquisition forms. So, and of course, these fields differ between different studies. Here, as an example, the first field is the acquisition form number. And as I mentioned earlier, this acquisition form number will come from the paper acquisition form. Then you have the ARIDL number. Of course, if you have that information handy, it will be of great help if you get that information. This particular field is an optional field. It's not mandatory. So if you don't have that information handy, you can skip that field. All the fields which are marked with an asterisk are mandatory fields. If you don't complete those fields, the system will give you an error, and it will prompt you to go back and complete those fields before you can move any further. Similarly, you have the initial fields where you would complete the initial, patient ID. So patient ID, the site number in patient ID will be pre-populated, and that will be pre-populated as soon as you select the site number from the drop-down menu on the top. The last few digits in the patient number would then need to be typed. You have randomization number, then gender number. Gender is actually a drop-down menu. You can select the gender from that drop-down. Date of birth is a calendar type field. You can go to that calendar to select the date of birth. Ethnic origin is a drop-down menu. Sample collection is a sample collection date is a calendar type field. You can click on the calendar to select the sample collection date. We have the sample collection time field. Those are drop-down menus. You can use those drop-down menus to select the sample collection time. And then you have the visit name. This is where you select the visit you're trying to complete the acquisition form for. Once you select the visit, the first acquisition form would appear on the right-hand side by default. You see that there's a blank area here on the right-hand side. This is where the new acquisition form would appear as soon as you select the visit you're trying to complete the acquisition form for. All right, so the next slide is slide number 13. Again, it tells you that you will need to complete all the required fields. If any of the required fields are not completed, so required fields are marked as an access, right? And if those are not completed, the system would give you an error. You would need to go back and complete those fields before you can go any further. Now I'm on slide number 14. As soon as you select the visit you're trying to complete the requisition form for, the requisition form, the first default requisition form would appear on the right on its own. So this is how it would look like. It would have several different columns. It will look like a table. The first column gives you the type of sample expected. So here, in this example, we have EDTA whole blood, serum, urine, and other serum that is expected. Under that visit, the second column gives the label. That means what basically gives you the hint as to what tube label would need to go on that particular sample. Then you have the container column. This tells you what tube would need to be used for that particular sample type. Fourth column is the sample collected, yes or no column. If you collected a sample and if the sample is being shipped over to Eurofins, you mark that as a yes. If the sample wasn't collected and if the sample is not being shipped, you mark that as a no. So we know that sample was collected, or if the sample wasn't collected, then we already have that information as well. Then we have the count column, the number of tubes expected for that sample. This would be defaulted. And then we have the sample hint, and that tells you exactly what needs to be done with the sample, whether the sample needs to be sent ambient, whether the sample needs to be sent frozen, whether it needs to be sent today, or whether it would need to be stored at the site before it's sent out. So it's a very useful hint that you would have in the last column. Okay, so the next slide, it is slide number 15. Again, it tells you the same thing that I just said. It gives you all the different columns that you would see in your acquisition form. And the sample collected yes or no column, in that column you will need to select yes if you have collected the sample and the sample is being shipped to your friends. And of course, if the sample wasn't collected, you need to mark that as a no. Next is slide number 16. Once you've completed the acquisition form, you will need to click on the next form button to go to the next form you will need to complete for that visit. So here in this example, you completed the ambient acquisition form first. When you click on the next form button, the system will take you to the next form. For example, frozen the acquisition form that you would need to complete for that visit. Also, just a reminder, when you completed the ambient requisition form, you took the requisition form number from the ambient requisition paper-based form, right? Similarly, when you click on next form, it takes you to the next requisition form for the sample. What you would need to do is basically take one of the paper requisition forms you have on site for frozen samples, and you take the requisition form number from the top of that requisition form and put that into the EzRF system. And the labels that you would use to label those frozen samples that you're going to be shipping for that visit, you would need to take those labels from that same paper frozen requisition form. All right. So the next slide that I have is slide number 17. Once you complete all the requisition forms and there are no more forms to be completed, the system would give you a link to print the forms. So here you will see there are three buttons: cancel, print forms, and resubmit. You can click on print forms button, and this would take you to the PDF of the forms you just completed. And you can click on then the print option and print those acquisition forms on a computer. Next is slide number 18. So just like I said, once you complete all the forms and click on the print forms button, the system will then take you to the PDF version of these forms, and then you can select the print option to print out these forms from your computer. And you can include these printed forms when you send the sample to your friends. Also, this particular slide gives you a screenshot of how the declaration forms would look like. You would notice that the upper left-hand side of the declaration form would have demographic information. It has subject ID, visit ID, date of birth, ethnic origin, so on and so forth. It also has the site information. It has the site number, site address, phone number, so on and so forth. Just under that information, you have the information on what sample type was expected, whether it was collected or not, and so all this comes from what you just completed on the online system. Also, along with the declaration forms, the last page that would print would be a combined report, and this report is just for the site records. You don't have to send that over to your friends. And it would just give you basically a summary of all the declaration forms that were completed. Next is slide number 19. Slide number 20. So anytime you complete a visit that was previously completed, the system would give you an error. And will tell you that this particular visit has been completed earlier. And then you would need to submit either an unscheduled visit or a repeat visit using the resubmit button, right? If it is truly an unscheduled visit. Or if the visit was selected in error, then you would just go and correct the visit name. Now then you have slide number 21. It again tests the same thing. The EzRF system will prompt you to select a reason for the unscheduled or repeat visit. So if you did, use the resubmit button to select the unscheduled visit, the system will ask you for a reason for that unscheduled visit. You need to select the reason from the drop-down menu and then click on Save. And this reason will then appear on the declaration form when you print out the declaration form from your computer. You will see that reason mentioned at the bottom. And that comment basically just tells us why the sample was selected twice. This way we would not be sending you queries and the queries would go down. Also, for demographic inconsistencies, the system would give you an error. So the system would alert you if you have entered declaration details that do not match previous entries for the subject. You will need to then correct the information if an error was made. If the information was, of course, correct, then you select the appropriate remark and move on. All right, so this brings us to the end of the first option, which was the submit option, and that option is used to complete the declaration forms online. Now I come to the second option, which is the ship option. I'm on slide number 25. So when you select ship under accession, you would need to select the site number from the drop-down menu. Once you select the site number and click on search, the ship option would then give you all the frozen samples that you should have at site, right? The samples that you did not send on the day of collection. The samples you have stored at the site will then appear here. If you're ready to send those samples to your friends, you would then select the samples from the first column. You have a little checkbox. You select those samples that you are trying to send now, and under the air bill number field, you enter in the air bill number and click on ship. If you do not have that information available, then of course you can leave that empty and click on ship. This will allow you to fill those forms, and you can include those forms when you're shipping those frozen samples over to your friends. Moving on to slide number 26. Slide number 26 basically gives you the same thing. You need to then select the samples you're trying to ship to Eurofins. You basically select those requisition forms from the first column, which is the ship column. There's a little checkbox. You check the box and then enter in the airbill number. If you have it handy, click on ship. It will take you to the PDF version of the form. You can fill those forms and send those along with the samples. Then you have slide number 27. Again, it's the same thing. The shipment list or the requisition forms you print are going to have, they're going to have demographic information, investigator information, visit schedule, and you just include those forms and you ship the samples over to your friends. Then I have the next slide, which is slide number 29. It is a search option. So the third option under expression is the search option, and this allows you to basically search for any requisition form or shipment list you completed online earlier, right? So all you would need to do is basically there are so many different fields that you could use to select the requisition form or find the requisition form. If you know the requisition form you're trying to find, the requisition form number you're trying to find, you can just enter the requisition form number under the requisition number field and click on search, and this would then give you that particular requisition form. Or you can select the site number and then click on search, and that would give you all the requisition forms that were completed in the past, or subject ID, and click on search, and that would give you all the requisition forms that were completed for that particular subject. So there are different ways by which you can search for the requisition form. The search results would look like this. So this would be a table with all the search results. There will be the site number in the first column. You have the airbill number, subject ID, initials, visit. Then you have the requisition form numbers. And it will also have a column where it would tell you whether the sample was, whether the sample should be at site or not. So all the ambient samples which were supposed to be sent on the day of collection, or all the frozen samples which are supposed to be sent to your reference on the day of collection would be marked as no, because they shouldn't be at the site. They should be at Eurofins. All the samples which should be at site, such as batch frozen samples, maybe they'll be marked as a yes because they're probably at site. You also have collection date, the date when the requisition forms were updated. You have the name of the person who updated the requisition forms, and in the last column you have an R&R form link, and that link basically allows you to access that requisition form. All right, so we are on to our last slide, slide number 31, site support. So the detailed user guide provides step-by-step instructions to access EzRF and complete the EzRF online requisition form. The link to this user manual is provided under the Contact Us tab. The way it's written is very easy. It's very easy to understand, easy to go through. It should answer all your questions regarding EzRF. Of course, if you have any questions and anything that you do not understand from the user guide, you can always contact us anytime. Also, under the Contact Us tab, you have EzRF frequently asked question document, and that's also very helpful. You can always contact us at any time. You can call us or email us. And that brings us to the end of this particular presentation. And thank you so much for listening in.